Good evening, dear listeners of the channel Stories for Sleep. I'm glad to welcome you to this cozy corner where stories whisper their secrets under the cover of night, inviting you to relax and immerse yourself in distant eras. Today, we will embark on a grandiose journey through time and space, dedicated to the 7 wonders of the ancient world and the 7 new wonders of modernity. These creations of human hands, from the majestic pyramids standing in the desert for millennia to the shining monuments that still inspire millions today, will tell us about the genius of the builders, the secrets of civilizations, and the eternal thirst to create something immortal. The lecture is designed for 2 hours of calm narration so that you can get comfortable, close your eyes, and allow the words to carry you into sleep, while before your mind's eye, ruins and domes, gardens and statues come to life. We will analyze each wonder in detail, from its origin and construction, through myths and legends, to its influence on our culture and fresh scientific discoveries. Imagine the warm desert wind touches your face, and the rustling of leaves in the hanging gardens lulls you like a lullaby. Get comfortable, turn off the light, and let's begin this magical journey through the wonders of the world. Pyramid of Khufu. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the only surviving wonder of the ancient world. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands on a plateau on the west bank of the Nile, near modern Cairo, in a complex that includes 2 other major pyramids, Khafre and Menkaure, as well as the Sphinx and many smaller structures. It is part of the Memphis necropolis, inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1979 under the name Memphis and its necropolis, the Pyramid Fields from Giza to Dahshur. The pyramid was built during the time of the Old Kingdom of Egypt, specifically during the 4th dynasty, approximately between 2580 and 2560 BC. It was intended as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, the second ruler of this dynasty, whom the Greeks called Cheops. Khufu ruled for about 23 to 26 years, and his reign was marked by the flourishing of Egyptian civilization when pharaohs were considered living gods and the pyramids were stairways to eternal life in the afterlife. Why specifically a pyramid? In Egyptian religion, the pyramid shape symbolized the rays of the sun descending to earth, or the primordial hill, Benben, from which the world arose. It was part of a huge funerary complex. Nearby were a temple for worship, a valley temple by the Nile for mummification rituals, and a long causeway connecting them. The pyramid did not stand in isolation. Surrounding it were mastabas, flat tombs for the nobility, including Khufu's mother, Hetetferes, whose burial was found in 1925 in a pit near the pyramid. It contained furniture, jewelry, and even an empty sarcophagus, suggesting a possible relocation of the burial due to robbers. Now, about the size. They are astonishing even today. Initially, the pyramid reached a height of 146.6 meters, which is higher than many cathedrals in medieval Europe, and remained the tallest structure in the world for over 3,800 years, until the construction of Lincoln Cathedral in England around 1300 AD. Now, due to erosion and loss of the casing, its height is about 138.5 meters. The base is a square with a side of 230.3 meters. The base area is more than 5 hectares, comparable to 10 football fields. The total volume is about 2.6 million cubic meters, and the weight is approximately 6 million tons. It consists of about 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing on average 2.5 tons, although some granite blocks in the King's Chamber reach 80 tons. If the pyramid were disassembled and the blocks laid in a line, they would stretch for 2/3 of the Earth's equator length, about 25,000 kilometers. The materials for construction were taken from different places. The main stone is nummulitic limestone from local quarries on the Giza Plateau, which contains fossils of marine organisms, recalling that this area was once the seabed. For the outer casing, white limestone from Tura on the other bank of the Nile was used. It was polished to a shine so that the pyramid shone in the sun like a giant crystal, visible for many kilometers.
Granite for the internal chambers and sarcophagus was transported from Aswan, more than 900 kilometers up the Nile. Transporting such massive blocks is a separate mystery. They were possibly floated on barges during the Nile floods and then dragged on wooden sleds using water to lubricate the sand. The construction of the pyramid is the pinnacle of ancient Egyptian engineering. According to the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt in the 5th century BC, its erection took 20 years and the labor of 100,000 people. But modern archaeologists, based on excavations, adjust this figure. There were about 20,000 permanent workers and up to 40,000 during peak seasons. They were not slaves, as previously thought, but skilled artisans and peasants who worked during the Nile floods when the fields were submerged. This is evidenced by finds in the City of Workers near Giza. There were bakeries, breweries, hospitals, and even cemeteries with tombs decorated with the names of the brigades, such as Friends of Khufu or Drunks of Menkaure. In 2013, the Diary of Merer was found, a papyrus from Wadi al-Jarf dated to the 27th year of Khufu's reign, describing the transportation of limestone from Tura on barges under the command of the official Merer. This confirms organized logistics. The stone was delivered in 4 days, and the workers received payment in the form of bread, beer, and meat. How exactly was it built? The theories vary. The main one is the use of ramps, straight, zigzag along the sides, or spiral around the pyramid. In 2018, a system of ramps with stairs and pillars for ropes was found in the Hatnub quarry, which allowed blocks to be lifted at a 20-degree angle. Other ideas include levers, rollers, and even water. Possibly channels around the pyramid helped transport materials. Blocks were cut with copper saws using abrasive sand, and water and sand were used for grinding for precise fitting. The pyramid is aligned with the cardinal directions with astonishing accuracy, a deviation of only 3 minutes 38 seconds of arc, possibly using astronomical observations, shadows from a gnomon, or stars such as Polaris, helping the pharaoh's soul ascend. There is also an underground chamber, carved into the rock at a depth of 30 meters, but unfinished. Possibly the original plan was changed. Between the levels is a well or shaft connecting the gallery with the underground corridor, which, according to legends, was used by robbers. In 1954, Khufu's solar bark was found, a wooden boat 43.6 meters long made of cedar, disassembled into 1,224 parts in a pit south of the pyramid. It symbolized the pharaoh's journey through the afterlife and is now exhibited at the Grand Egyptian Museum. A second bark was found in 1987, but has not yet been fully extracted. Myths and legends surround the pyramid in a thick fog. The ancient Greeks considered it the work of slaves, but excavations disproved this. The workers were free, proud of their labor.
Some esotericists see coded knowledge in the dimensions. The ratio of the base perimeter to the height is supposedly equal to 2 pi, and the proportions correspond to the golden ratio, although scientists dispute whether this is accidental. There are theories about the pyramid as an observatory or an energy device, but they are not confirmed. Arab legends from the 12th century speak of treasures inside, including mummies and star maps, but when Caliph al-Mamun punched a tunnel in the 9th century, only the empty sarcophagus was found. Modern research reveals new secrets. The Scan Pyramids project, launched in 2015, uses muon tomography, cosmic rays that penetrate through stone, to illuminate the pyramid without destruction. In 2017, a big void was found above the Grand Gallery, a cavity at least 30 meters long and 8 meters wide, possibly another chamber or relieving structure. In 2023, a hidden corridor was discovered on the north side, a horizontal tunnel 9 meters long with a chevron ceiling, possibly intended to distribute weight or conceal something larger. Studies have shown that it is blocked and there may be more space behind it. And in 2025, discoveries shook the world. Radar and synthetic aperture radar, SAR, using satellites and seismic vibrations, found a huge underground complex beneath the Giza Plateau. A team from Italy and Scotland, including Corrado Malanga and Filippo Biondi, announced structures up to 600 meters deep, twice the depth of the Eiffel Tower, extending up to 2 kilometers. These are 8 vertical cylindrical shafts, each about 640 meters deep, surrounded by spiral pads leading to 2 cubic structures 76 meters on a side and 5 multi-level buildings connected by passages. The cylinders are located under each of the 3 pyramids, possibly as entrances. Some sources call this an underground city with symmetrical architecture, but this is debatable. Egyptian officials, including Zahi Hawass, reject the findings as unreviewed and exaggerated, noting the limitations of radar at such depths. Others see this as proof of a lost branch of the Nile along which the pyramids were built, or even an ancient energy system. Research continues, but permission for excavation is difficult to obtain. The pyramids' influence on culture is immense. It inspired Napoleon in 1798. Soldiers, 40 centuries look down upon you. It has appeared in films, books, from Indiana Jones to conspiracy theories. Today, the main tourist attraction in Egypt, visited by millions but suffering from erosion and pollution. Archaeologists like Mark Lehner continue excavations of the lost city of the workers. In 2020, a lost casing fragment was found in the Aberdeen Museum, dated 3341 to 3094 BC, possibly recycled material. The pyramid reminds us of human genius, how 4,500 years ago people created an eternal monument that survived empires. The Great Pyramid of Khufu remains not only an engineering triumph of the ancient Egyptians, but also an eternal reminder of the human thirst for immortality. Its secrets continue to be revealed, inspiring new generations of scientists and dreamers. With this, we conclude the story of the first wonder of the ancient world and move on to the next one, the Hanging Gardens of Semiramis. The Hanging Gardens of Semiramis are associated with ancient Babylon in Mesopotamia, in the territory of modern Iraq. This wonder dates back to approximately the 6th century BC, the period of the flourishing of the Neo-Babylonian Empire under the rule of King Nebuchadnezzar II, who reigned from 605 to 562 BC. Nebuchadnezzar, known as a great conqueror and builder, transformed Babylon into one of the most magnificent cities of antiquity, with massive walls, ziggurats, and palaces. The gardens, according to legend, were created specifically by him for his wife Amytis, a princess from Media, who longed for the green hills and forests of her mountainous homeland. In the dry, dusty Mesopotamia, where the Euphrates and Tigris were sources of life, such gardens would have become a true miracle, an artificial paradise lifted above the ground. The name, Hanging Gardens of Semiramis, is a Greek interpretation. Semiramis was to legendary Assyrian queen Shahmuramat, who ruled in the 9th century BC, but historians believe that the Greeks confused her with Amytis, or simply attributed the gardens to a more famous figure. Descriptions of the gardens have reached us mainly from Greek and Roman authors, since Babylonian sources are silent about this wonder, which is a mystery in itself. The first to mention them was Antipater of Sidon in the 2nd century BC, but detailed accounts are given by Berossus, a Babylonian priest of the 3rd century BC, quoted by Josephus, Strabo, 1st century BC, Diodorus Siculus, 1st century BC, and Quintus Curtius Rufus, 1st century AD. They describe the gardens as a multi-tiered structure, resembling a mountain, with terraces rising up to 25 meters, roughly like a 7-story building. Each terrace was supported by vaulted arches and columns made of fired brick, and a thick layer of soil was heaped on top, up to 3 to 4 meters deep, so that the roots of large trees could take root. Imagine, the lower level, a wide platform, perhaps 120 by 120 meters, with fountains and ponds, fed by water from the Euphrates. Above, smaller terraces, planted with exotic plants, palms, cypresses, fig trees, roses, lilies, and even fruit orchards. They are hanging because the plants hung down from the edges of the terraces, creating the illusion of a forest floating in the air. To prevent water leakage, the terraces were covered with a layer of bitumen, natural asphalt extracted in Mesopotamia, lead plates, and reeds. This was advanced waterproofing for that time. The gardens were integrated into the royal palace, or even the Etemenanke ziggurat, the prototype of the biblical Tower of Babel, making the entire complex a symbol of the king's divine power. The irrigation system is perhaps the most impressive part. Water from the Euphrates was lifted to the upper levels using mechanical devices, Archimedes screws, spiral pumps, chain pumps with buckets, or water wheels driven by slaves, animals, or even wind. Strabo describes how the water flowed down in cascades, creating coolness and humidity in the hot climate. The total volume of water needed for irrigation could reach thousands of liters per day, a true engineering achievement in a region where rainfall is scarce and summer temperatures exceed 40 degrees. Construction, according to estimates, took years and required the labor of thousands of workers, including gardeners from different parts of the empire who brought seeds and seedlings from Persia, India, and even Egypt. Bricks for the terraces were fired in huge kilns, and the plants were adapted to the local climate. This was a prototype of modern hydroponics. But here is the main intrigue. Did the gardens actually exist? Archaeological evidence is ambiguous. The German archaeologist Robert Caldwell, who conducted excavations in Babylon from 1819 to 1917 under the auspices of the Deutsche Orientgesellschaft, found massive walls, the Ishtar Gate with glazed bricks, now in the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, and the ruins of Nebuchadnezzar's palace. He identified a vaulted room as the possible foundation of the gardens, with water channels, but found no traces of terraces or plants. Later excavations in the 1930s and 1950s by Iraqi archaeologists, as well as post-war studies in the 1980s under the leadership of Saddam Hussein, who even tried to reconstruct Babylon, also did not yield direct evidence. In 2003 to 2011, after the invasion of Iraq, international teams, including UNESCO, surveyed the site, but war and looting damaged much. Alternative theories are gaining ground. In 2013, the British Assyriologist Stephanie Daly from Oxford University proposed that the gardens were not in Babylon, but in Nineveh, the capital of Assyria under King Sennacherib, who ruled from 705 to 681 BC.
Her arguments are based on Assyrian reliefs from Nineveh, now in the British Museum, depicting multi-tiered gardens with aqueducts, trees, and even exotic animals. Sennacherib boasted in inscriptions, "I created gardens like the mountains of Amanus and planted all kinds of trees." He built a 150-kilometer aqueduct from Jirwan using stone arches, a technology preceding the Roman one. Daly suggests that the Greeks, who conquered the region under Alexander the Great, confused Nineveh with Babylon and Semiramis with the Assyrian queen. This theory is supported by the analysis of cuneiform tablets. Assyrian texts mention hanging gardens, Beit Akitu, while Babylonian ones do not. Recent studies add intrigue. In 2023, a team from Tel Aviv University and the Iraq Museum, using satellite images and ground-penetrating radar, surveyed the ruins of Nineveh near modern Mosul and found traces of ancient canals and terraces under a layer of soil. They suggest that the gardens could have stretched for 300 hectares with artificial lakes. In 2024, an article in Journal of Near Eastern Studies suggested that hanging is a translation error. The Akkadian word mushalu means terraced, not suspended. And in early 2025, a study published in All About History magazine, February issue, by Cambridge University scientists, analyzing new cuneiform tablets from the British Museum, dated to the 7th century BC, concluded that the gardens could have been located in Nineveh and were part of a large botanical complex of Sennacherib. This study, based on 3D modeling and climate analysis, suggests that the gardens included rare plants from conquered lands, serving as propaganda for the empire's power. However, Egyptologists and Mesopotamian specialists, such as Zahi Hawass or Irving Finkel, argue without direct excavations in Mosul, where conflicts continue, this remains a hypothesis. If the gardens existed in Babylon, their fate was tragic. After the conquest of the city by the Persians in 539 BC, Cyrus the Great preserved the buildings, But Alexander the Great in 331 BC planned a restoration, which did not happen due to his death. Earthquakes in the 2nd century BC, erosion from the Euphrates, and oblivion during the Parthian era could have destroyed them. Diodorus mentions that by the 1st century AD, only ruins of the gardens remained. Alternatively, if in Nineveh, then Ashurbanipal destroyed the city in 612 BC, and the remnants are buried under modern Mosul. Myths around the gardens are full of poetry. They symbolized Eden, the paradise garden in the Bible, possibly inspired by them, as Babylon is associated with the Babylonian captivity of the Jews. In the Persian tradition, paradises, enclosed gardens, evolved from this. The legend of Semiramis, as a warrior and builder, adds romance. She allegedly ruled for 42 years, conquering India and Egypt. In medieval Europe, the gardens were depicted in miniatures as a symbol of luxury, and in the Age of Enlightenment as an example of ancient engineering. The influence is visible in the gardens of Versailles of Louis XIV with terraces and fountains, or in the modern hanging gardens of Singapore, Super Tree Grove. Films like David Griffith's Intolerance 1916 reconstruct them as grandiose scenery, and in literature, from Byron to modern fantasy, modern research focuses on virtual reconstructions. In 2022, a UNESCO project using VR showed what they might have looked like with 360-degree views of the terraces and sounds of water. Tourists visit the ruins of Babylon, partially restored, but the real searches continue in Nineveh, where ISIS destroyed artifacts in 2014 to 2017, but restorations are now underway. In 2025, a new expedition is planned with drones and AI analysis to search for underground structures. The Hanging Gardens teach us how legends intertwine with history, and human imagination creates eternal wonders, even from myths. The Hanging Gardens of Semiramis remain shrouded in mystery, symbolizing the dream of paradise on earth. Their image is a hymn to human ingenuity and the pursuit of beauty, whether in Babylon or Nineveh.
With this, we conclude the story of the second wonder of the ancient world and move on to the next one, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, the greatest temple of ancient Greece. Now let's move to ancient Ionia on the coast of the Aegean Sea, where the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus stood, one of the most prosperous cities of the ancient world. This temple, built around 550 BC, was dedicated to the goddess Artemis, the patroness of hunting, the moon, and fertility, and was considered one of the most majestic structures of Greek architecture. Ephesus, located in the territory of modern Turkey, near the city of Selçuk, was an important trading center where routes from Asia to Europe crossed, and the temple became its heart, attracting pilgrims from all over the Mediterranean. It was built by order of the Lydian king Croesus, known for his fabulous wealth, and designed by the architects Chersiphron and Metagenes of Knossos. Construction took about 120 years, which emphasizes the grandeur of the project. The temple was not just a sanctuary, but a symbol of power and piety. The temple was a dipteros, a type of Greek temple with a double row of columns around the central part. Its dimensions were striking, 115 meters long, 55 meters wide, with 127 columns 18 meters high each, made of marble, with carved bases and capitals. Each column was a gift from different rulers and cities, making the temple a collective masterpiece of the Hellenic world. Inside stood a statue of Artemis, made in the chryselephantine technique, of gold and ivory, with multiple breasts symbolizing fertility, although some historians see nuts or bee eggs in them. The goddess was depicted with deer and bees, emphasizing her connection with nature and hunting. The temple was not only a religious center, but also an economic one. It served as a bank, where treasures were stored and provided refuge to fugitives, thanks to the status of asylum. Pliny the Elder, in his Natural History, described it as the most amazing creation of human hands, and Antipater of Sidon included it in the list of wonders for its beauty and scale. The construction of the temple was a real engineering challenge. Marble was mined in nearby quarries on Mount Pion and transported on wooden rollers and sleds, using slave labor and free artisans.
The foundation was laid on marshy soil to protect against earthquakes. The architects poured a layer of coal and wool under the base, as described by Vitruvius in 10 books on architecture. The columns were raised using ramps and levers, and reliefs on the friezes depicted myths about Artemis, such as her birth on Delos and the hunt for Actaeon. The temple was adorned with paintings by great artists, such as Apelles, and sculptures by Praxiteles, making it a museum of art. But its fate was tragic. In 356 BC, the temple burned down due to the arsonist Herostratus, who wanted to immortalize his name. Legend has it that Alexander the Great was born that night, and Artemis was busy with his birth, unable to protect her home. Alexander later offered to restore the temple, but the Ephesians refused, saying that a god should not build a temple for a god. The new temple, built in the 4th century BC by the architect Dianacrates, was even more grandiose. It stood on a platform 2.7 meters high with 117 columns, some of which were donated by Alexander, and lasted until the 3rd century AD, when the Goths plundered it in 262. Earthquakes and floods from the Castros River completed the destruction, and in the 5th century, Emperor Theodosius I banned pagan cults, making the temple unnecessary. The stones were used for the construction of Christian churches, including the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. Archaeological excavations began in the 19th century. In 1863, John Turtle Wood, funded by the British Museum, began searching, guided by Pliny's descriptions. After 6 years, he found the foundation in 1870, buried under 6 meters of marshy soil. The fragments found, columns, reliefs with Amazons and griffins, are now in the British Museum and the Ephesus Museum. Myths about the temple are full of drama.
Artemis in Ephesus was identified with Cybele, the Anatolian mother goddess, and her cult included orgies and fertility rituals, with eunuch priests called megabizos. The legend of the Amazons who founded the temple adds intrigue. They allegedly hid their treasures there. In the New Testament, in the Acts of the Apostles, the riot of the silversmiths of Ephesus against Paul is mentioned, fearing the loss of income from the sale of Artemis statuettes. The temple influenced architecture. Its style was copied in the Parthenon and Roman temples, such as the Temple of Venus in Rome. In art, from Rubens' paintings to films about the ancient world, the temple symbolizes the lost grandeur of Greece. Modern research reveals new secrets. Excavations in Ephesus continue by the Austrian team since 1895, and in recent years the focus has been on underground structures. In 2023, new reliefs depicting Artemis as a huntress, dated to the 4th century BC, were found. In January 2025, Turkish archaeologists announced major discoveries in western Turkey, including additional fragments of the temple foundation hidden under a layer of soil. In May 2025, updated excavations in Ephesus revealed more about the underground tunnels, possibly used for rituals or storing treasures. Instagram posts from July 2025 show how archaeologists are excavating buried columns, partially visible earlier, revealing impressive details of the carving and new secrets about the 7 wonders, including possible underground rooms beneath the temple. In June 2025, the blog The Archaeology of Artemis discussed how these finds confirm the cultural influence of the goddess, with new artifacts such as altars and statuettes. These discoveries, using ground-penetrating radar and 3D scanning, help reconstruct the temple virtually, making it accessible to all. Today, only one column remains of the temple, assembled from fragments, standing on a marshy field. The UNESCO site, visited by millions of tourists, includes the Ephesus Museum with exhibits. Reconstructions in miniature parks in Turkey and computer models allow us to imagine its former glory. The temple reminds us of the fragility of human creativity, from the fire of Herostratus to the earthquakes of time. The Temple of Artemis at Ephesus remains a symbol of the harmony of art, religion, and engineering, an eternal testament to Greek genius. Its ruins whisper stories of gods and men, inviting us to reflect on the past. With this, we conclude the story of the third wonder of the ancient world and move on to the next one. The statue of Zeus at Olympia, the throne of the king of the gods. Now our journey leads us to the sacred valley of Olympia, in the western part of the Peloponnese in Greece, where stood the grandiose statue of Zeus, the king of the Olympian gods and the lord of lightning. This wonder, created around 435 BC by the great sculptor Phidias, was not just a statue, but the embodiment of divine power and human skill, placed in the heart of the Temple of Zeus, built in the 5th century BC. Olympia, the birthplace of the Olympic Games in 776 BC, was a sacred sanctuary dedicated to Zeus, where every 4 years athletes from all over Greece competed in running, wrestling, and discus throwing to honor the god. The temple and statue became a symbol of Hellenic culture, attracting pilgrims, philosophers, and rulers, such as Alexander the Great, who considered Zeus his father. Philo of Byzantine, in his treatise on the Seven Wonders, described the statue as something that exceeds all expectations, and Pausanias, in Description of Greece in the 2nd century AD, noted that if Zeus stood up, he would break through the temple roof. The statue was colossal, about 12.4 meters high, seated on a throne, making it one of the largest sculptures of antiquity. It was made in the chryselephantine technique. A wooden frame was covered with ivory plates for the skin and gold for the robes and accessories, creating the illusion of a living god. Zeus held a statue of Nike, the goddess of victory, about 2 meters high in his right hand, and a scepter with an eagle on top, the symbol of his power, in his left.
The throne was a masterpiece in itself, made of cedar, inlaid with ebony, gold, ivory, and precious stones, with reliefs depicting myths, the birth of Aphrodite, the battle of the Lapiths with the centaurs, the exploits of Heracles and Theseus. Sphinxes supported the legs of the throne, and the back was decorated with figures of graces and hours. Phidias worked on the statue in a special workshop near the temple, where archaeologists later found molds for casting and tools. To create the illusion of grandeur, the floor in front of the statue was paved with black marble and filled with olive oil, which reflected the light and protected the ivory from dryness. The construction of the Temple of Zeus preceded the statue. It was erected between 470 and 456 BC from local limestone, with marble pediments depicting myths about Pelops and the battle of the Lapiths with the centaurs. The architect Liban of Elis designed it in the Doric style. 6 columns on the facade, 13 on the sides, 10.4 meters high, with metopes showing the 12 labors of Heracles. The temple stood in the center of the Altus, the sacred grove of Olympia, surrounded by a wall where were altars, treasuries of city-states, and a stadium for 40,000 spectators. Phidias, already famous for the statue of Athena in the Parthenon, spent about 8 years on Zeus, using gold from Africa and ivory from India. Legend has it that upon completion, Phidias asked Zeus if he was satisfied, and lightning struck the floor, a sign of approval. The statue survived earthquakes thanks to special shock absorbers in the foundation, but in the 5th century AD, it was transported to Constantinople by order of Emperor Theodosius II, where it burned down in a fire in 475. The fate of the statue is full of mysteries. Some sources, like George Cadrenos, claim that it perished in a fire in Olympia in 425, but most historians lean towards the version of transportation to Constantinople, where it stood in the palace of Lausos. There are no direct remains of the statue, only copies on coins, gems, and Roman statues of Jupiter. Archaeological excavations in Olympia began in the 19th century. In 1829, a French expedition found fragments of metopes, and in 1875 to 1881, German archaeologists led by Ernst Curtius excavated the entire temple. They found Phidias's workshop with molds for ivory, tools, and even a cup with the inscription, "I belong to Phidias," confirming the authorship. In the 20th century, Greek archaeologists continued the work, discovering the stadium and the palaestra. In recent years, the focus has been on preservation. In 2004, before the Athens Olympics, the temple was restored, and in the 2010s, laser scanning was used for 3D models. Myths around the statue add charm. Zeus was considered the father of the games, and athletes offered him sacrifices before competitions, believing that the god watched over them. Pausanias described how the statue inspired awe. Visitors wept at its sight. In the Roman era, Emperor Caligula tried to transport the statue to Rome, but the scaffolding collapsed, and the statue allegedly laughed. The statue's influence on culture is immense. It inspired Roman copies of Jupiter, medieval depictions of God the Father, and modern statues like Abraham Lincoln in the Washington Memorial or Christ the Redeemer in Rio. In art, from Rubens' drawings to films about Greek gods, Zeus symbolizes power and majesty. The Olympic Games were revived in 1896, and the fire is lit in Olympia at the ruins of the temple. Modern research continues to reveal secrets. Olympia has been a UNESCO site since 1989, and Greek archaeologists are conducting excavations. In 2023, new bronze statuettes of athletes were found in the sanctuary. In 2025, sources report that an expedition in Olympia discovered fragments of marble reliefs from the Temple of Zeus, possibly parts of the pediment with the myth of Pelops. These finds, dated July 2025, help to better understand the temple's decor and Phidias's technique. In addition, in March 2025, a monumental tomb with gold artifacts, including a ring with Apollo, was found nearby, which is associated with the cult of Zeus. In June 2025, updated excavations revealed bronze ruins and altars, enriching the understanding of the sanctuary.
Using ground-penetrating radar and drones, scientists are studying underground structures, possibly workshops or altars. The site is visited by millions of tourists, with a museum housing pediments and metopes. The statue of Zeus at Olympia is an ode to the divine in human creation, a reminder of the spirit of competition and harmony. Its loss is a loss to the world, but the ruins of Olympia continue to inspire. With this, we conclude the story of the fourth wonder of the ancient world and move on to the next one. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus. The Mausoleum at Halicarnassus, the tomb of eternal love. Now we travel to ancient Caria, on the southwestern coast of modern Turkey, where in the city of Halicarnassus, now known as Bodrum, stood the Mausoleum, a majestic tomb built between 353 and 350 BC. This wonder was created in memory of King Mausolus, a satrap of the Persian Empire, and his sister wife Artemisia II, who commissioned the construction after his death, making it a symbol of eternal love and mourning. Halicarnassus was a prosperous port city founded by the Dorians with a population of 10 to 20,000 people, where Greek, Persian, and Carian cultures mixed. Mausolus, who ruled Caria from 377 to 353 BC, strengthened the region, moving the capital to Halicarnassus and building walls, a theater, and a palace, making the city a center of Hellenistic influence in Asia. Antipater of Sidon included the mausoleum in the list of wonders for its beauty and scale, and the word mausoleum became synonymous with a grandiose tomb. The mausoleum was not just a grave, but an architectural masterpiece combining Greek, Lycian, and Persian styles. About 45 meters high, like a 15-story building, it stood on a platform 38 by 32 meters with a pyramidal roof crowned by a quadriga, a chariot with 4 horses, driven by Mausolus and Artemisia. The lower part was a podium with friezes depicting the battles of the Amazons with the Greeks and the centaurs with the Lapiths, symbolizing the triumph of civilization over barbarism.
The middle tier was surrounded by 36 Ionic columns, 12 meters high, between which stood statues of lions, riders, and mythical creatures created by the sculptors Scopas, Leocharis, Bryaxis, and Timotheus, each responsible for one side. The upper tier, a pyramid with 24 steps leading to the marble quadriga. Inside was the burial chamber with the sarcophagi of Mausolus and Artemisia, surrounded by altars and gardens. Pliny the Elder described it as suspended in the air, emphasizing the airiness of the structure. Construction was led by the architects Satyrus and Pythias, using marble from local quarries and imported stone. Workers, including Greek masters, labored for years, and Artemisia, who ruled after her husband's death, died 2 years later without seeing the completion, but the builders finished the project in her honor. The mausoleum survived the conquest of Alexander the Great in 334 BC, who admired it and left it untouched. It stood for 16 centuries, withstanding sieges and earthquakes, until a strong earthquake in the 13th century destroyed the pyramid. In 1494, the Knights Hospitaller, who built Bodrum Castle, used the stones of the mausoleum for fortifications, dismantling it almost completely. A legend recorded by Claude Guichard in the 16th century tells how the knights found the sarcophagi but left them overnight, and in the morning they were plundered. Archaeological excavations began in the 19th century. In 1856, Charles Thomas Newton of the British Museum, guided by Vitruvius's descriptions, found the foundation and fragments. He extracted reliefs with the Amazonomachy, statues of Mausolus and Artemisia, now in the British Museum, and parts of the quadriga. In the 20th century, Turkish archaeologists continued the work, discovering underground chambers and additional reliefs. Today, the site is an open museum with the foundation, models, and fragments, included in the UNESCO list as part of Bodrum. Myths about the mausoleum are full of romance. Artemisia allegedly mixed her husband's ashes with wine and drank it to become his living tomb, emphasizing their connection.
Mausolus, son of Hikatomnus, the founder of the dynasty, made Caria semi-independent from Persia, and his tomb influenced the design of the Taj Mahal and Grant's tomb in New York. In literature, from Pliny to modern novels, it symbolizes eternal memory. Modern research has revitalized the site. Excavations in Bodrum continue, focusing on underground structures. In 2023, new reliefs with battles, dated to the 4th century BC, were found. In 2025, Turkish archaeologists announced significant finds in western Turkey, including fragments in Bodrum possibly related to the mausoleum. Research on the tomb of Hekatomnus in Milas, the predecessor of the mausoleum, discovered in 2010, continues, with new artifacts in 2025, such as frescoes and sarcophagi, enriching the understanding of the Carian dynasty. In June 2025, analysis in Milas revealed more about the tomb's decor, with gold ornaments and reliefs associated with Mausolus. Using 3D scanning and ground-penetrating radar, scientists are virtually reconstructing the mausoleum, making it available online. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus is a monument to love that survives centuries, a reminder of how death inspires immortal creations. Its ruins in Bodrum call us to reflect on the fragility of glory. With this, we conclude the story of the fifth wonder of the ancient world and move on to the next one, the Colossus of Rhodes. Now we sail to the island of Rhodes in the Aegean Sea, where at the entrance to the harbor stood the Colossus of Rhodes, a colossal bronze statue of the sun god Helios. This wonder, built between 292 and 280 BC, was created by the sculptor Chattis of Lindos in honor of the victory of the Rhodians over the siege of Demetrius Poliorcetes, the Macedonian general, in 305 through 304 BC. Rhodes, a prosperous trading island with a population of about 60,000 people, was known for its shipbuilders and navigators, where three cities, Lindos, Camieros, and the Ilissos, united into a federation. The Colossus symbolized freedom and the patronage of Helios, the god whom the Rhodians revered as their protector. Philo of Byzantium described it as the greatest creation of bronze, and Pliny the Elder was amazed that few can embrace the statue's big toe with their hands, emphasizing its scale. The statue was enormous, about 33 meters high, taller than the Statue of Liberty without the pedestal. It depicted Helios standing, with a crown of rays on his head, holding a torch,
or simply looking into the distance, with his legs possibly spread apart over the harbor entrance, although modern scientists dispute this. The frame was iron, filled with stones for stability, and the surface covered with bronze plates the thickness of a coin. Construction took 12 years and cost 300 talents of silver, a huge sum obtained from the sale of Demetrius's siege machines. Charis used a technique similar to bell casting. Bronze was melted in furnaces, and the plates were attached to the frame with copper nails. To lift the parts, an earthen ramp was built around the statue, which was later dismantled. Legend has it that the statue stood with its legs spread apart, allowing ships to pass under it, but archaeologists consider this a myth. It probably stood on a pedestal on a cape or a hill near the harbor. The Colossus stood for only 56 years, destroyed by an earthquake in 226 BC. It broke at the knees, and the debris lay on the ground, astonishing travelers. Strabo wrote that the statue's hand was larger than many entire statues. The Rhodians did not rebuild it, following an oracle that warned it would bring misfortune. The debris lay for 800 years until 653 AD, when the Arabs who conquered the island sold them to a Syrian merchant for 900 camel loads of bronze. Since then, no traces of the Colossus remain, only legends and images on Rhodian coins, with Helios. Archaeological searches for the Colossus began in the 19th century. In 1856, the Italian archaeologist Salvatore Bovi found fragments in the harbor of Rhodes, but they turned out to be from other statues. In the 20th century, Greek and Italian expeditions excavated the Acropolis of Rhodes, finding the Temple of Helios, but not the Colossus. Underwater excavations in the harbor in the 1990s, led by the Greek Ministry of Culture, discovered ancient walls and ships, but not the statue. Some scientists, like Raymond Dodds, suggest that the Colossus stood not in the harbor, but on Monte Smith Hill, where a pedestal was found. In 2008, the Colossus was proposed as a tourist attraction, but the project was frozen due to the economic crisis. Myths about the Colossus are full of exaggeration. The Greeks considered it a guardian, similar to the Egyptian colossi of Memnon, and the Romans copied it in statues of emperors. The legend of the spread legs appeared in the Middle Ages, inspiring depictions in books such as the Romance of Alexander. The Colossus influenced the Statue of Liberty. Both were designed by the Frenchman Eugène Viollet-le-Duc, the grandfather of Liberty's designer. In literature, from Shakespeare and Julius Caesar to films like Jason and the Argonauts, it symbolizes the fragility of grandeur. Modern research focuses on the location and reconstruction. In 2023, Greek archaeologists used ground-penetrating radar in the harbor of Rhodes, finding possible foundations of statues. In 2025, new discoveries revived interest. In July 2025, Bettany Hughes, in the BBC documentary 7 Wonders of the World, explored possible locations of the statue with the help of local experts and surveys, suggesting that the Colossus stood not in the harbor, but on a hill based on new topographical data. In April 2025, an updated guide to Rhodes mentioned recent finds in the Lindos Acropolis, including bronze fragments, possibly related to Char's workshops. Although confirmed in July 2025 that no confirmed remains have been found, underwater research in the harbor with drones revealed ancient port structures, possibly the pedestal of the Colossus. These discoveries, using AI to analyze images, help virtually restore the statue. Today, Rhodes is a tourist paradise, with an archaeology museum exhibiting models of the Colossus. The ruins of the harbor and the Acropolis recall the former grandeur, and plans for reconstruction are being discussed. The Colossus teaches us about triumph and fall, a giant overthrown by nature. The Colossus of Rhodes remains a symbol of resilience and beauty, a guardian whose silhouette still looms in the imagination. Its history is a reminder of how time erases even giants. With this, we conclude the story of the sixth wonder of the ancient world and move on to the next one. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, light in the darkness of the ancient world. Now our journey brings us to legendary Alexandria, on the northern coast of Egypt, where on the island of Pharos stood the Lighthouse of Alexandria, the last of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This lighthouse, built between 285 and 247 BC by order of Ptolemy I Soter and his son Ptolemy II Philadelphus, was not just a landmark for ships, but a symbol of Hellenistic genius and the power of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which ruled Egypt after the death of Alexander the Great. Alexandria, founded in 331 BC, was a cosmopolitan center with a population of up to 500,000 people, housing the famous library and museum, attracting scholars from all over the world. The lighthouse, designed by the architect Sostratus of Cnidus, served for navigation in the dangerous harbor of the Nile, where reefs and shoals threatened ships carrying grain, papyrus, and spices, making it vital for Mediterranean trade. Philo of Byzantium described it as a tower visible a day's journey away, and Arab authors, such as al-Masudi in the 10th century, praised it as a wonder of wonders. The lighthouse was a grandiose structure, 120 to 140 meters high, taller than many modern skyscrapers of that time, and consisted of 3 tiers. The lower tier, square, about 60 meters high, with rooms for the guard and mechanisms for lifting fuel, built of white stone with granite corners for strength. The middle tier, octagonal, about 30 meters, with balconies and statues of Tritons. The upper tier, cylindrical, crowned with a dome with a bronze statue, possibly of Zeus or Poseidon, although some sources mention Hellas or Ptolemy.
The fire at the top burned day and night, fueled by oil or wood, and was reflected by polished bronze mirrors visible for 50 kilometers. Legend has it that the mirrors could focus light to set enemy ships on fire, but this is probably a myth. Construction took 12 years and cost 800 talents of silver, a huge sum, using ramps and cranes to lift blocks weighing up to 75 tons. Sostratus carved an inscription on the foundation. Sostratus, son of Dexiphanes of Cnidus, to the savior gods for the well-being of seafarers. The lighthouse survived centuries, serving as a guide for the Romans, Byzantines, and Arabs. By the 14th century, the lighthouse had turned into ruins, and in 1480, the Mamluk Sultan Qaitbay used the stones to build a fortress on its foundation. Underwater debris was found in the 1960s by French divers led by Jacques-Yves Cousteau, discovering columns, statues, and blocks in the harbor. In 1994, Jean-Yves Emperer's team from CNRS began systematic excavations, finding thousands of artifacts. Myths about the lighthouse are full of secrets. The Greeks considered it a creation of the Ptolemies, but the Arabs a magical tower with mirrors that could see Constantinople. It inspired legends about pharaohs as a magical light guiding souls to the afterlife. The lighthouse influenced all subsequent lighthouses, from Roman to modern ones, such as the lighthouse on Pharos Island in Virginia. In art, from Pompeii mosaics to the film Cleopatra, it symbolizes enlightenment and navigation. Modern research has revitalized the ruins. Underwater excavations in Alexandria Harbor continue, focusing on the debris. In 2023, new granite blocks with hieroglyphs were found. In 2025, discoveries shook the world. In July, a team from CNRS raised 22 massive blocks from the seabed for digital reconstruction. These blocks, weighing up to 80 tons, were extracted to create a digital twin of the lighthouse, showing its original appearance and fall. The project, led by Isabel Hayri, combines archaeology and technology, raising 22 stones out of 36 previously known, plus 100 scanned underwater. This will allow the virtual restoration of the lighthouse, revealing details of the structure. Using drones and AI, scientists analyze how earthquakes destroyed the tower. Today, Qaitbay's fortress stands on the site of the lighthouse, with an underwater archaeology museum. Alexandria attracts divers to the ruins, and VR reconstructions allow us to see the wonder. The lighthouse reminds us of the light of knowledge in the darkness.
The Lighthouse of Alexandria is an eternal symbol of navigation and human perseverance, a light that survived the darkness of centuries. With it, we conclude the 7 wonders of the ancient world and move on to the 7 new wonders of modernity. The Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China, the dragon guarding the empire. Now, dear listeners, we move on to the 7 new wonders of the world, selected in 2007 by a global poll organized by the Swiss New 7 Wonders Foundation, in which millions of people around the world participated. These wonders reflect humanity's modern admiration for grandiose creations that have survived centuries and emphasize cultural diversity. The first of them is the Great Wall of China, stretching across northern China like a gigantic dragon, symbolizing the nation's resilience and unity. This wall, built over centuries from the 3rd century BC to the 17th century AD, is not a single structure, but a system of fortifications, towers, and fortresses with a total length of more than 21,000 kilometers. Enough to circle the Earth 1.5 times if laid in a straight line. It runs through mountains, deserts, and rivers, from the East China Sea to the Gobi Desert, guarding the borders against northern nomads. The Chinese call it Wan Li Cheng Chen, the Wall of 10,000 Li, emphasizing its infinity. The wall originated in the spring and autumn period, around the 8th to 5th centuries BC, when individual kingdoms built earthen ramparts to protect against raids. It acquired its true scope under the first emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi, who ruled from 221 to 210 BC, who unified China and connected the disparate walls into a single system, mobilizing millions of workers, including soldiers, criminals, and peasants.
Construction continued under the Han, Sui, Ming, and Qing dynasties, peaking in the 15th-16th centuries under the Ming when brick walls and towers were added. The height of the wall varies from 6 to 9 meters, the width from 4 to 6 meters, allowing 5 riders to travel in a row, with signal towers every 200 meters for transmitting messages by smoke or fire. Materials: earth, stone, brick, and lime, mixed with rice glue for strength. In some sections, such as at Badaling, the wall climbs steep slopes at a 45-degree angle, demonstrating engineering genius. The total volume of materials is about 100 million cubic meters, enough to build a wall around the equator 5 meters high. Construction was a colossal labor, costing the lives of millions from hunger, exhaustion, and accidents. Legends tell of a wall of tears, where the bones of workers are walled up in the foundations. Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi, also known for the Terracotta Army, used the wall to consolidate power, but it did not always stop invaders. The Mongols under Genghis Khan broke through in the 13th century. Under the Ming dynasty, the wall was reinforced, adding 25,000 towers and fortresses such as Shanhai Pass, the pass between mountains and sea, and Jiayu Guan in the west. The functions of the wall evolved, from defense to controlling trade on the Silk Road and even tourism and modernity. Myths about the wall are endless. Western legends claim it is visible from space, but NASA refuted this. From orbit, it looks like a thin line, invisible to the naked eye. Chinese tales tell of Lady Meng Jiangnu, whose husband died on the construction site and her tears destroyed part of the wall. The wall symbolizes the dragon, the spirit of China, guarding against barbarians. The influence on culture is huge. It inspired films like The Great Wall with Matt Damon, books about Chinese history, and even modern walls like the Berlin Wall or the Mexican border wall. UNESCO included it in the World Heritage List in 1987, recognizing it as a cultural asset. Modern research reveals new secrets. The wall suffers from erosion, tourism, and urbanization. Only 8% is in good condition. In the 2000s, satellites were used to map the full length. In 2023, hidden sections were found in Mongolia extending beyond the border. In 2025, discoveries shook the world. In February, archaeologists excavated the oldest section in Shandong province, dating back to approximately 770 BC, 300 years older than previously thought.
This section, 20 kilometers long with earthen ramparts and moats, belongs to the Qi Kingdom period and shows early engineering techniques such as rammed earth with wooden beams. A study published in the Global Times confirms that the wall is 3 centuries older, changing the chronology of its origin. In April, 9 sections were found in Gansu province, dating back to the Western Han Dynasty, more than 2,000 years ago, with stone walls and watchtowers revealing defensive strategies. These finds, announced by the Chinese government, stretch for 10 kilometers and include artifacts such as ceramics and tools. In March, fortifications older than the Qin Wall were found in a mountain pass dating back 2,800 years, with earthen ramparts and moats, preceding the unification of China. Research with drones and LiDAR shows innovations, like the wavy design for stability. Conservation projects in 2025 use AI to monitor erosion. Today, the wall is China's main tourist attraction, with sections like Bedtime visited by 10 million annually. Restoration continues, but critics note rebuilding in a Disney style. It reminds us of unity and sacrifice, connecting the past with the present. The Great Wall of China, an eternal guardian, embodying the spirit of the nation, its curves are like the river of time. With it, we begin the new wonders, full of mysteries. With this, we conclude the story of the first new wonder and move on to the next one.
Petra, the Rose City, carved into the rock. Now we travel to the mysterious Wadi Musa Valley in Jordan, where Petra is hidden, a rose-red city carved into the rocks by the Nabateans, an ancient people who ruled the caravan routes of the Arabian Peninsula. This is the second of the 7 new wonders of the world, chosen by millions of votes in 2007. Representing not just ruins, but an entire city hidden in a canyon, symbolizing the harmony of man and nature, where stone comes to life under the hands of masters. Petra, known as the Rose City due to the shades of sandstone, was the capital of the Nabatean kingdom from the 2nd century BC to the 1st century AD, with a population of up to 30,000 people. The Nabateans, a Semitic people, nomads who became merchants, controlled the routes of frankincense, spices, and silk from Arabia to the Mediterranean, accumulating wealth that allowed them to create this masterpiece. The city flourished thanks to a water supply system, aqueducts, cisterns, and dams that collected rainwater in the desert where rainfall is only 150 millimeters per year, providing an oasis in an arid area. Petra stretches over 264 square kilometers, with more than 800 monuments carved into the rocks. The main entrance is through the narrow Sikh Canyon, 1.2 kilometers long and only 3 to 4 meters wide in some places, where the walls rise 80 meters, creating a natural defense and a dramatic effect. At the end of the canyon opens Al-Khazneh, the treasury, a facade 40 meters high, carved in the 2nd century BC as a tomb or temple, possibly for King Aretas IV. Its columns, pediments, and urns in Greco-Roman style are adorned with erosion, giving a pink sheen. Further, the colonnaded street, with a theater for 8,000 spectators, carved into the rock, where performances and gatherings were held. Royal tombs, such as the Palace and the Urn, rise on the hills, with facades imitating Hellenistic architecture. The monastery Ardare, 800 steps up, is a huge facade 45 by 50 meters, possibly a temple or tomb, with a cross inside, indicating Christian use later. The Nabateans used hydraulics. 200 kilometers of channels and terracotta pipes collected water, and dams prevented floods, demonstrating engineering talent in the desert.
The city fell in 106 AD, conquered by the Romans under Trajan, becoming the province of Arabia. Earthquakes in 363 and 551 destroyed much, and with the change in trade routes, Petra was forgotten by the 7th century. Rediscovered in 1812 by the Swiss traveler Johann Burckhardt, disguised as an Arab, searching for a lost city. Archaeological excavations began in 1929 by British scientists, and in 1958 the Jordanians took control. UNESCO included Petra in the list in 1985, and in 2007 in the New Wonders. Today, 15% is excavated, with finds such as ceramics, coins, and frescoes. Myths about Petra are full of romance. The Nabateans worshipped Dushara, the god of the mountains, and Aluza, the goddess of fertility, with rituals in high places. Legends connect it with Moses. The Ain Musa source was allegedly created by his staff. In pop culture, from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where Al-Khazneh is the Temple of the Grail, to games and books, Petra symbolizes lost civilizations. The influence is visible in architecture, from neoclassicism to modern buildings in the rocks. Modern research reveals secrets. Petra suffers from tourism, 1 million visitors annually, and erosion. In 2023, LiDAR was used to map underground structures. In 2025, discoveries shook the world. In July, archaeologists found a hidden tomb under Al-Khazneh with 12 skeletons and artifacts, including ceramics and jewelry dating back to the 1st century BC. This is a rare find with complete burials, revealing Nabatean rituals, announced as a momentous discovery by Josh Gates in Expedition Unknown. In October 2024, continuing into 2025, excavations confirmed a tomb with a holy grail, a cup similar to the film. But experts urge caution, calling it a bit inflated. A team from St. Andrews University raised the skeletons and 2,000-year-old objects, enriching the understanding of Nabatean culture.
In April 2025, new petroglyphs in cisterns were found, showing hydraulics. Research with drones and AI analyzes erosion, helping with preservation. Today, Petra is a UNESCO site with 1 million tourists, but restrictions for protection. The Sikh is lit by candles at night with a show. It reminds us of lost civilizations and harmony with nature. Petra, the eternal city in the rock, whispering the secrets of the Nabateans. Its pink facades are like a sunset in the desert. With this, we conclude the story of the second new wonder and move on to the next one. The statue of Christ the Redeemer. The statue of Christ the Redeemer, a symbol of faith and hope. Now, dear listeners, we cross the ocean to sunny Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where the statue of Christ the Redeemer rises on the top of Corcovado Mountain, the third of the 7 new wonders of the world, chosen by millions of votes in 2007. This monumental figure, spreading its arms over the city, symbolizes peace, faith, and forgiveness, becoming an icon not only of Brazil, but of the entire Christian world. The statue was built between 1922 and 1931 on the initiative of the Catholic Church and the residents of Rio, wishing to mark the centenary of Brazil's independence from Portugal. The idea belongs to the priest Pedro Maria Bas, but the project was implemented by the Brazilian engineer Heitor da Silva Costa with the help of the French sculptor Paul Landowski and the Romanian artist Gheorghe Leonida, who created the head. Funding came from donations. Millions of Brazilians contributed, making it a people's monument. Located at an altitude of 710 meters, the statue looks out over Guanabara Bay, the favelas, and the beaches of Copacabana, embracing the city with an arm span of 28 meters. The statue is impressive in size, 38 meters high, like a 13-story building, with an 8-meter pedestal, total weight 1,145 tons. It is made of reinforced concrete, faced with soapstone mosaic, resistant to erosion, with thousands of triangular tiles glued by hand. The arms stretch for 28 meters, the head 3.75 meters, each palm 1.3 square meters. Inside, a staircase and an elevator for maintenance, and at the base, a chapel for 150 people. Construction was a challenge. Materials were lifted up the mountain by rail, and workers risked their lives on the scaffolding. The solemn opening on October 12, 1931, was illuminated by Guglielmo Marconi from Italy via radio. The statue survived storms, lightning. In 2014, lightning struck off a finger, and erosion, requiring regular restorations. The statue is not only a religious symbol, but also an engineering masterpiece. Its form, inspired by Art Deco, is resistant to winds up to 250 kilometers per hour thanks to aerodynamics. In 2007, it survived a storm, losing tiles, but remained standing. UNESCO recognized it as part of the Rio landscape in 2012. Annually, 2 million tourists visit it, climbing by funicular or on foot, enjoying a 360-degree panorama. Myths about the statue are full of miracles. Brazilians believe that Christ protects the city. During Carnival, it is illuminated in the colors of the flag. Legends speak of visions of builders who saw angels. It influenced art, from the film Rio to songs about Brazil, symbolizing hope. The influence is visible in copies around the world, from Lisbon to Vietnam. Modern research and events emphasize its relevance. Restorations continue. In the 2020s, tiles were replaced and lightning protection was strengthened. In 2025, the statue became the center of events. In June 2025, Catholics held an environmental action at the foot of the statue, spreading an eco-friendly carpet in front of the statue, calling for climate action ahead of COP30. This event, with thousands participating, emphasized the statue's role in global challenges. In July 2025, rare photos from the statue's shoulder appeared from the artist Ben Tuna, showing details of the restoration and the view from above. Using drones and 3D scanning, engineers monitor cracks, preventing weather damage. Today, the statue is a UNESCO site, illuminated on holidays with lighting for events. It reminds us of the faith that unites people. The statue of Christ the Redeemer, the eternal guardian of Rio. Its arms embrace the world, symbolizing hope in chaos.
With this, we conclude the story of the third new wonder and move on to the next one, Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu, the lost city of the Incas. Now we ascend into the Andes, to the southern part of Peru, where Machu Picchu is hidden at an altitude of 2,430 meters above sea level. The Old Mountain in the Quechua language, the fourth of the 7 new wonders of the world chosen by millions of votes in 2007. This mysterious city, built by the Incas in the 15th century during the time of Emperor Pachacuti, represents a harmonious fusion of architecture and nature, where terraces, temples, and palaces are carved into the rocks as if grown out of the earth. Machu Picchu was discovered in 1911 by the American explorer Hiram Bingham, who was looking for the lost city of Vilcabamba, but found this wonder hidden by mists and jungles. The Incas, a civilization without writing or the wheel, created an empire from Colombia to Chile, where Machu Picchu served, possibly as the emperor's residence, an astronomical observatory, or a sacred refuge for the Akla, chosen women. The city accommodated about 1,000 inhabitants, with agricultural terraces fed by an irrigation system from mountain springs, providing a harvest of corn, potatoes, and coca in the harsh climate of the Andes. Machu Picchu stretches over 5 square kilometers, divided into urban and agricultural sectors. The main entrance is through the Sun Gate, Intipunku, which offers a panorama of the ruins. The central square is surrounded by temples. The Temple of the Sun with the semicircular Torian Tower where Inti Raymi, rituals, the festival of the sun, were held. The Temple of Three Windows symbolizes the 3 worlds of the Incas, Hanan Pacha, sky, Kai Pacha, earth, and Uku Pacha, underworld. The Room of the Condor, with a condor carved into the rock, is possibly an altar for sacrifices. The terraces, andenes, hold the soil on the slopes, with a drainage system of gravel and sand, preventing erosion. The Incas used polychrome stones, polygonal blocks, fitted without mortar, resistant to earthquakes, demonstrating mastery in earthquake-resistant architecture. Astronomical elements, Intihuatana, the sunstone, served as a calendar, casting shadows during solstices. The city was abandoned in the 16th century after the Spanish conquest, possibly due to smallpox or internal conflicts. It remained unknown until the 19th century when John Lloyd Stephens and Frederick Catherwood described it in 1843. Excavations began immediately, with Yale expeditions taking thousands of objects to the USA, partially returned in 2011. UNESCO included Machu Picchu in the list in 1983 and in 2007 in the New Wonders. Today, 80% is restored, but the city suffers from tourism, 1.5 million visitors annually, and erosion. Myths about Machu Picchu are full of mysteries. The Incas considered it sacred, connected with the creator Viracocha. Bingham thought it was Tambo Toco, the cradle of the Incas, or a refuge for the virgins of the sun. Modern theories, an observatory, a fortress, or a ritual center. Legends of treasures, Inca gold allegedly hidden in tunnels. In pop culture, from Dan Brown's books to Tomb Raider games, it symbolizes lost cities. The influence is visible in architecture, from Peruvian houses to global eco-projects. Modern research reveals new secrets. Machu Picchu is a UNESCO site with restrictions of 2,500 visitors per day. In the 2000s, LiDAR was used for trails under the jungles. In 2023, new terraces and paths were found. In 2025, discoveries shook the world. In April, archaeologists revealed unknown ceremonial platforms and tombs on the Inca Trail dating back to the 15th century with artifacts like ceramics and textiles. These finds, announced in early 2025, include previously unknown sites near Machu Picchu, such as altars and caves with rock paintings, revealing Inca rituals. A study published in Peru Ways confirms that these platforms were used for astronomical observations, changing the understanding of the city. In July 2025, a team found new burials with 12 skeletons under structures similar to the Nabatean ones in Petra, but Incan with gold items.
Using drones and AI, scientists analyzed the terraces, revealing hydraulics. 2025 projects focus on preservation from climate change. Today, Machu Picchu is a tourist magnet, with a train from Cusco and the Inca Trail. New 2025 rules restrict access for protection. It reminds us of the wisdom of ancestors living in harmony with the mountains. Machu Picchu, the eternal city in the clouds, its terraces are steps to the stars, whispering the secrets of the Incas. With this, we conclude the story of the fourth new wonder and move on to the next one. Chichen Itza. Chichen Itza, the Maya pyramid, full of mysteries. Now we descend into the tropical jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, where Chichen Itza is spread out, an ancient Maya city, the fifth of the 7 new wonders of the world, chosen by millions of votes in 2007. This complex, whose name means mouth of the well of the Itza in the Maya language, represents the pinnacle of Maya civilization, where pyramids, observatories, and ball courts merge in harmony with the cosmos and nature. Chichen Itza flourished between the 6th and 13th centuries AD, peaking in the 9th to 12th centuries, when it was the capital of the Maya Toltec culture, uniting the traditions of central Mexico and Yucatan. The city occupied 5 square kilometers, with a population of up to 50,000 people, where priests, warriors, and artisans lived in stone houses, surrounded by cornfields and cenotes, sacred wells, such as the Cenote Sagrado, where rituals with sacrifices were held, throwing gold, jade, and even people into the water to appease the rain gods. The Maya, masters of astronomy and mathematics, built Chichen Itza as a calendar in stone, where buildings are oriented to the stars and the sun. The city's center is the Pyramid of Kukulkan, or El Castillo, 24 meters high with a pedestal, crowned with a temple. It has 4 sides with 91 steps each, plus the platform, a total of 365, symbolizing the days of the year. Twice a year, during the equinoxes, the shadow from the steps forms a serpent descending the pyramid, Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, the god of fertility. Inside, a smaller pyramid with a jaguar throne and a statue of Chakmul, where priests held the hearts of victims. Nearby, the Temple of the Warriors with thousands of columns, frescoes of battles, and an altar for sacrifices. Sampantli, the skull platform, with skull reliefs reminding of death rituals. The ball court for Poctopoc, the largest in Mesoamerica, 168 meters long, where ball players symbolized the struggle of light and darkness, and the losers were possibly sacrificed. The El Caracol Observatory, the snail, with a round tower, was used to observe Venus and the moon, helping with the Maya calendar. Construction involved limestone, mined locally, with techniques without metal, only stone and wood, with precise fitting of blocks and tapping for acoustics in the pyramid. The city fell in the 13th century, possibly due to drought, rebellions, or soil depletion. It was forgotten until the 19th century, when John Lloyd Stevens and Frederick Catherwood described it in 1843. Excavations began in the 1890s by Mexican archaeologists and in the 1920s by the Carnegie Institute. UNESCO included it in the list in 1988. Today, 20% is excavated, with a threat from tourism, 2.5 million visitors annually, and acid rain. Myths about Chichen Itza are full of mysteries. The Maya believed in Kukulkan as a god who came from the west, possibly the Toltec Quetzalcoatl. Legends of the cenotes as portals to Xibalba, the underworld, with treasures found in 1904 by Edward Thompson. In pop culture, from books about the Maya to films like Apocalypto, it symbolizes the end of the world, according to the Maya calendar in 2012. Although this is a myth, the influence is visible in architecture, from Mexican pyramids to modern observatories. Modern research reveals new secrets. Chichen Itza is a UNESCO site with pyramid restoration. In the 2000s, LiDAR was used for trails under the jungles. In 2023, underground caves with artifacts were found. In 2025, discoveries shook the world. In March, archaeologists found a hidden tunnel under the Kukulkan Pyramid with ritual objects dating back to the 10th century.
In July, a team from INAH revealed new cenotes and paths leading to unexplored ruins with frescoes and ceramics, revealing Maya trade links. A study published in National Geographic confirms that these finds, including altars with jade, change the understanding of rituals. In April, an underground world was found, a network of caves under the city with human remains and sacrificial offerings, possibly for the rain god, Chak. Using drones and AI, scientists analyze acoustics, revealing how the pyramid chirps like a Quetzal bird when clapped. Today, Chichén Itzá is a tourist center with 2.5 million visitors with a light show during the equinoxes. New 2025 rules restrict access for protection. It reminds us of the Maya calendar and the connection with the cosmos. Chichén Itzá, the eternal calendar in stone. Its pyramids are stairways to the stars, whispering the prophecies of the Maya. With this, we conclude the story of the fifth new wonder and move on to the next one. The Colosseum. The Colosseum is the arena of spectacles and death. Now we descend into the eternal city of Rome in Italy, where the Colosseum stands, a grandiose amphitheater, the sixth of the 7 new wonders of the world, chosen by millions of votes in 2007. This elliptical giant, also known as the Flavian Amphitheater, symbolizes the power of the Roman Empire and its love for spectacles, where gladiators fought to the death and the crowd roared with delight. The Colosseum was built between 70 and 80 AD by order of Emperor Vespasian of the Flavian dynasty on the site of a lake in Nero's garden to erase the memory of the tyrant and win over the people. Funding came from the spoils of the Jewish War, including the treasures of the Temple of Jerusalem, and construction was completed by Vespasian's son Titus, opening it with 100 days of games featuring 5,000 slain animals. Rome at that time was a metropolis with 1 million inhabitants, where the Colosseum became a center of entertainment, accommodating 50 to 80,000 spectators, from senators to slaves. The architect is unknown, but the design is the pinnacle of Roman engineering, using concrete, tuff, and travertine, making it the largest amphitheater in the world. The Colosseum is impressive in size. An ellipse, 188 by 156 meters, 48 meters high, like a 15-story building, with 80 entrances for quick evacuation. The arena, 83 by 48 meters, was covered with sand to absorb blood, with underground corridors, the hypogeum, for gladiators, animals, and mechanisms. Lifts for 80 people lifted lions and elephants through hatches, creating surprises. The stands were divided by class, the podium for the emperor and senators, the mynenium for knights, the upper tier for the plebs and women. An awning, the velarium, made of sails protected from the sun, pulled by sailors. The games included venationes, hunting of beasts, naumachia, sea battles by filling the arena with water. Construction took 10 years with 100,000 slaves, including Jewish prisoners, using arches and vaults to distribute the weight of 300,000 tons. The Colosseum was used for 400 years until the 6th century, when earthquakes and the decline of the empire stopped the games. In the Middle Ages, it became a quarry. Stones were used for cathedrals and palaces. In the 18th century, Benedict XIV consecrated it as a site of Christian martyrdom. Restorations began in the 19th century, removing plants from cracks. UNESCO included in the list in 1980. Today, an open-air museum with underground tours. Myths about the Colosseum are full of drama. Gladiators, those who fight with swords, were slaves, criminals, or volunteers, with the motto Ave Caesar, morituri te salutant. Hail Caesar, those who are about to die salute you, although this is possibly an exaggeration. Legends of Christian martyrs, although many executions were in other amphitheaters. The Colosseum inspired films like Gladiator, books about Rome, and modern stadiums. The influence is visible in architecture, from the Los Angeles Coliseum to fight arenas. Modern research reveals new secrets. The Colosseum is a UNESCO site, with a restoration of the arena for 25 million euros in 2023. In 2025,
Discoveries shook the world. In January, a rare piece of Egyptian blue pigment was found near the Colosseum, dating back about 2,000 years in the Domus Aurea, revealing the luxury of imperial decor. This pigment, used for frescoes, shows trade links with Egypt. In August, during metro excavations in Piazza Venezia near the Colosseum, working-class Roman homes were found, a multi-story complex with houses and shops dating back to the Republican era. These findings, announced on August 5th, reveal the daily life of Romans with mosaics and frescoes. In April, a skeleton of a gladiator with lion bites was found in England, but related research in Rome analyzes similar artifacts from the Colosseum. Using 3D scanning and AI, scientists are reconstructing the hypogeum, revealing the mechanisms. Today, the Colosseum is a tourist magnet with 7 million visitors with night tours. 2025 restorations focus on climate resilience. It reminds us of spectacles where life and death were a show. The Colosseum, the eternal arena, the echo of the crowd's roar in its walls, a symbol of Rome's power. With this, we conclude the story of the sixth new wonder and move on to the last one, the Taj Mahal, the mausoleum of eternal love and beauty. Now, dear listeners, our journey concludes in northern India, in the city of Agra, where the Taj Mahal shines on the bank of the Yamuna River, the seventh and last of the 7 new wonders of the world, chosen by millions of votes in 2007. This snow-white mausoleum, built between 1632 and 1653 by order of the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his beloved wife Mumtaz Mahal, who died giving birth to her 14th child, is the pinnacle of Islamic architecture and a symbol of eternal love, where symmetry, marble, and gardens create the illusion of paradise on earth. Agra, in the 17th century, was the capital of the Mughal Empire, stretching from Afghanistan to Bengal, where Shah Jahan, the grandson of Akbar the Great, ruled in an era of flourishing art and trade. The Taj Mahal, whose name means crown of palaces, was built as a tomb for Mumtaz, but also became the tomb of the emperor himself, where their sarcophagi lie side by side in the underground chamber, although the visible cenotaphs upstairs are empty for protection against robbers. The emperor spent the equivalent of 32 million rupees on construction, a huge sum equal to the annual budget of the empire. The Taj Mahal impresses with its symmetry and beauty. A square plan 55 meters on a side, with a central dome 73 meters high, surrounded by 4 minarets 40 meters each. The minarets are slightly tilted outwards so that they do not fall onto the mausoleum in case of an earthquake. The facade is faced with white Macrona marble, inlaid with semi-precious stones, jasper, lapis lazuli, onyx in the pietra dura technique, forming floral motifs and calligraphy from the Quran. The dome, inspired by Persian and Indian traditions, seems to float thanks to an optical illusion. The Charbagh Gardens, 4 gardens, are divided by canals symbolizing the rivers of paradise, with cypresses and fountains where the water reflects the mausoleum, creating a mirrored effect. The entrance gate, made of red sandstone, is decorated with reliefs and calligraphy, and inside an octagonal chamber with a screen of carved marble, jolly, transmitting light like lace.
Construction was led by the architects Ustad Ahmad Lahori and Ustad Isa, with 20,000 workers from India, Persia, and Turkey, including masters from Baghdad for calligraphy and Bukhara for inlays. Marble was transported on elephants from Rajasthan and stones from Afghanistan and China. The Taj Mahal survived centuries, but not without trials. After Mumtaz's death, Shah Jahan planned a black mausoleum opposite, but was overthrown by his son Aurangzeb and imprisoned in Agra Fort, from where he watched his creation until his death in 1666. In the 18th century, the Jats and Marathas plundered it, stripping gold and stones, and the British in the 19th century used it as a picnic spot. Restorations began under Lord Curzon in the 1900s, restoring its luster. In the 20th century, pollution from Agra factories became a threat, yellowing the marble, which led to a green zone around it.
UNESCO included it in the list in 1983. Myths about the Taj Mahal are full of romance and tragedy. Legend has it that Shah Jahan cut off the hands of the masters so that they would not repeat the masterpiece, but this is fiction. Another about the Black Taj Mahal, allegedly visible in the ruins opposite, but this is an optical illusion, or the remnants of a garden. Some see Masonic symbols or Hindu motifs in the symmetry, suggesting that it is a rebuilt Shiva temple, the Tejo Mahalaya theory, refuted by historians. The Taj Mahal inspired the poetry of Rabindranath Tagore, who called it a tear on the cheek of eternity, and music, from Bollywood films to songs. The influence is visible in mausoleums, from Grant's tomb in New York to copies in Bangladesh. Modern research and restorations maintain its splendor. The Taj Mahal is visited by 8 million tourists annually, generating millions of dollars, but suffers from pollution and crowds. In 2018-2023, cleaning was carried out with mud, Multani Mitti, to remove the yellowness. In 2025, discoveries and work continue. In June, the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, revealed a water leak in the main dome at a height of 73 meters using thermal scanning, which led to urgent restoration work to prevent damage. This discovery, announced on June 27, showed a seepage point requiring roof and dome repair, using drones and experts for minimal intervention. In July, routine restoration of the dome and roof continued to preserve the timeless beauty, with warnings to tourists about possible restrictions. In addition, at the beginning of the year, a government report noted that the Taj Mahal earned 297 crore rupees in 5 years, confirming it as the most profitable monument, which funds further work. Using 3D scanning and AI, scientists model erosion, revealing how the marble changes color at sunrise and sunset, from pink to gold. 2025 projects include environmental initiatives such as planting trees around to reduce pollution. Today, the Taj Mahal is a UNESCO site, with restrictions on photos and shoes inside, illuminated by the moon on full moon nights. Tourists come at dawn to see the fog over the Yamuna, creating a mystical aura. It reminds us of love that survived time and the fragility of beauty. The Taj Mahal, an eternal monument of love. Its domes are like pearls in the crown of India, whispering the story of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal. With this, we conclude the story of the 7th new wonder. And so, dear listeners, our journey through the 7 wonders of the ancient world and the 7 new wonders of modernity comes to an end. We have passed through millennia, from the sands of Giza, where the Great Pyramid of Khufu stands as an eternal guardian of time, through the legendary Hanging Gardens of Semiramis, whose terraces dissolve into the myths of Babylon, to the shining Taj Mahal, whose marble whispers of the love of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal. Each wonder is not just stone, bronze, or marble, but a story of human genius, faith, and the desire to leave a mark on eternity. These structures, whether the ruins of the Colosseum, where the echo of gladiatorial battles still sounds, or the pink rocks of Petra, hiding the secrets of the Nabateans, remind us of the fragility and grandeur of civilizations. They teach us that even what seems eternal is subject to time, but the dreams embodied in these wonders live on in our imagination. May these stories lull you to sleep tonight, carrying you into dreams where pyramids shine under the stars and lighthouses illuminate the path in the darkness. Good night, dear friends, and may your dreams be full of wonders.